Hola, ya estamos aquí de nuevo, sin parar, un panel tras otro. Vamos a continuar aquí en BeTalent, en La Pedrera, con un nuevo panel, BSTARTUP, recaudación de fondos internacionales para startups. Y es que la COVID-19 ha incrementado la oportunidad de encontrar fondos con los que financiar startups en todo el mundo. Nuestros ponentes invitados compartirán con BeTalent su proceso de preparación para la inversión y sus experiencias en la búsqueda de fondos de capital riesgo internacionales especializados y corporativos y también su situación actual. Para ello tenemos aquí a Oriol Sans y Ballart. Él es manager de Startups en Acció, que es uno de nuestros patrocinadores. Acció es la agencia de competitividad empresarial de la que lo iba a decir como en castellano, de Generalitat de Cataluña, perteneciente al Departamento de Empresa y Empleo. Esta agencia se propone incrementar la productividad de las empresas catalanas, acompañarlas en sus retos de transformación y posicionamiento global y potenciar el atractivo de Cataluña como destino de inversión extranjera de alto valor, cosa que parece que nos hace mucha falta, ¿no? También ha trabajado en adquisición de M&A, adquisición y gestión de capital de riesgo en juntas directivas de startups y en comités de inversión de fondos de capital riesgo y red de inversores informales. Y además es profesor también, ¿no? En Rovira i Virgili como profesor de finanzas y emprendeduría en la Universidad Rovira i Virgili y también la European Institute of Design y el ISABA. Caramba, qué currículum tienes, Oriol.
Bueno, puede ser mejor.
¿Podría ser mejor?
Seguro,
hombre, ¿no?
Hombre, tenemos tiempo, aún tenemos tiempo.
Mira, como ayer tuvimos aquí a una psicóloga, Patri, la psicóloga, que nos dijo que nos focalizáramos en lo positivo, porque lo negativo ya viene solo, ¿verdad?
No, pero digo, que mejorar de cada futuro.
Vale.
Yo creo que es muy bueno la mejora, ¿no? Y las startups que tenemos aquí es uno de los elementos que nos lo hacen patente, ¿no? La mejora y la lucha continua para hacer el mundo mejor.
Eso está muy bien, renovarse o morir,
sí.
¿no? Muy bien. Tenemos aquí también a Ferran Puntí García. Hola. Hola, bienvenido. Gràcies. Ignasi Lluc, que es él, y Xavier Llairó. Perdón.
Muy bien.
Bueno, pues todos ellos vamos a iniciar este panel BeStartup. Adelante, cuando queráis.
Muy bien, pues Ana, muchas gracias por tus palabras y la organización BNew, ¿de acuerdo? Para dejarnos a Acció, pues, poder organizar esta mesa redonda, ¿no? Bueno, ahora voy a pasar en inglés, ¿de acuerdo? Well, as you all know, this session is on raising a specialized international funding for startups. And I believe that it can be useful to you for two main reasons. The first one is that there's a growing trend of more and more specialized venture capital, that this can be related to the knowledge, the experience, and the added value that the general partners of venture capitals add to companies like you, okay? That can be also because then you have like a fund, an asset, okay, that they can be in larger diversified portfolios, for example, and this is something that to some investors can be of interest. And then at the end, there's the corporate venturing strategy of some large corporations that can also, or that they also apply this strategy in order to get innovation. Okay, this is the first reason, and the second one is that COVID-19. We were talking about that before, previous to this roundtable, has changed a lot of things. Okay, as everybody says that. Okay, so that's a fact. But and those changes or those new ways to do things, some of them maybe are going to stay for the future. And when we talk and when we prepare this roundtable, that was something that arose. Okay, some changes or radical changes in the process of fundraising and negotiating with investors that we will also cover. And to discuss this and learn more on the topic based on the experience of those Catalan startups, we have, as Anna said, Ferran Puntí García, CEO at Bridge Studios, Ignasi Lluc, CTO at Near Space Lab and co-founder, okay, and Xavier Llairó, CCO and co-founder at Pangea Aerospace. So thank you all for being here and share your experience, your insights, and also your time, okay, with us and the audience. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first question. Okay, we're on a tight schedule, but I think that we're going to do it. Okay, the first question is, although the attendants or the viewers can search about your startup and about what you do, I would like to, if it can be brief, if you can introduce what you do and how you solve the problem according to what you do. So Farhan, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much for the introduction. We in the Bridge Studios, we are a video games company. So we can say that we solve sadness. So we make video games for the people to get fun. We are specialized in PC and console games, also mobile. But to be briefly, we make video games.
Well, and Ignasi, what about your Space Labs?
I think we're maybe a tad more exotic. So what we do is we design, build, and operate high-altitude balloons to image the Earth. And this is a product that maybe you can see in something like Google Maps. They use this type of sources. And when you compare with drones and satellites, we have a better combination of resolution, high revisit, and also coverage. We can cover much larger scale than drones. And we're a 4-year-old company. Up to date, we raised, I think, 16 million in diverse sources of capital. So happy to be here and discuss how can we get there.
Okay, thank you, Ignasi. And now, Xavier, what does Panzero Space?
So Panzero Space is a company working in the field of launch vehicles, so rockets, to actually answer the growing need to send small satellites to low Earth orbit. However, we are taking an approach that is a bit different from what other micro-launchers are doing, basically because we understood that we have to decrease the cost of launching, and to our view, this passes also, not only, but also by developing new technology. So today, the company is focusing on 2 main technologies, a recovery system that we've patented, and a different kind of engine that has been largely studied before, but that now is possible thanks to additive manufacturing.
Okay, so now we know what those startups do. It's time to dig deeper in the fundraising process, okay? So I would like to ask you, and we will start with Xavier, okay? How you define the needs of the company, of the startup, okay, in terms of funding, also in terms of the experience that you needed coming from the investor, and also how did you execute this and how you reach the process of having a long list, a short list, maybe how you pick or choose the investors that you wanted to pitch. If you can explain something about this.
Absolutely. So I think space is quite a difficult sector. Well, I guess everybody in different sectors will say the same, but it's quite a different sector from what I knew before, and it's very publicly driven. You have long times of development, so it's not for all investors. And at the beginning of the company, I have to admit that we pitched a lot to national and European investors, very generalist. We did a small funding round to start and so on. But then when we started properly doing the planification of our capital needs according to our objectives, what we did is to really understand when we needed to raise the money, when was the best moment for us to raise the money, and we started creating relationships with some specialized investors very early on. For instance, in 2019 already, we had a first discussion with Panzero Space, which is one of our VCs in our cap table, and they are from Italy and specialized in space. So early on, from 2019, we had a first meeting with them, and we told them, okay, once we need to raise money, we will contact you again. So we're able to present at the very beginning our plans, and 2 years later, when we came back to them, we actually made them understand that we were accomplishing what we promised and what we said 2 years before, right? And I think this is one of the key elements. The other elements also, I think, and I think also it's a trend, is that a lot of VCs are looking to share the risk when they invest. So you have rounds that are large or small, but more diversified with different VCs. And in our case, it's very clear because we have 2 specialized VCs from space, 1 from the US, 1 from Europe. We have 1 national VC that is quite generalist, and we have institutional investment as well. And I think this was a little bit the perfect mix for us, because we wanted somebody from Spain also, because we are a Spanish company, so having a Spanish VC is very helpful at a national level for many, many reasons, even if it's a generalist one. We wanted a specialized VC because it gives a lot of credibility to the project, more in a project that is, we can say deep technology. So somebody that understands this technology, understands the potential of this technology, and can share it with the rest of investors. And last but not least, having an institutional investor in a sector that is so publicly driven, I think it's also very helpful, because we have to be in line with national priorities for development and European priorities for development in the launch vehicle sector.
And just one quick question. When having this list of potential investors, you look at other companies that have received previous investment that are in your same field, or this is something that you get for being in this sector. Can you give us another tip for our viewers?
One thing that we did very early on in the company was to look at all the companies that, let's say, were similar to us and had passed these steps, to have comparables and to understand who were in their boards, so who is investing there. So you understand that if you have a competitor that you think you are quite similar, but not completely similar, of course, and you understand that 2 years ago they had this kind of round, then you can maybe derive the valuation. You understand also the kind of investors they have, and maybe you think, okay, maybe they committed a mistake and this is not the good investor, so we look for this. And yeah, then I think that you all share this, but sometimes you have lots of meetings with an investor, they seem very interested, and at the end it's nothing. And other times in the first meeting, it goes like this, and you have the investment. So at the end, there is also some luck, and well, not luck, but yeah.
Okay. So now, Ignacy, you want me to repeat the question, or you can go ahead?
I think I can talk a bit, like Xavier, about what happens before and the preparation process, and why should you raise money, and why did we go for our Series A. And something that Xavier said, I think it's fundamental, is preparing and building your relationships before. So if you think in a year you're going to be raising a seed or an A or whatever round it is, you need to talk to these investors now to understand exactly what they're going to expect. And this is super sector dependent, so it's not going to be the same in rockets, in what we do, in video games. But you have to understand those expectations, otherwise you're going to go to the market and understand you have to change the pitch. And this happened to us a lot of times, and still happens. And actually, I think we do it deliberately now, that we put the pitch in a place that we think makes sense, and you know, we know why we're raising, and we know the problem we're solving, and what are we going to do with the money. But we don't do the last 10% of fine-tuning. We just go to pitch to less important funds. And sorry if I'm disappointing anybody that's watching this and was the first to be pitched. And they will give you some out-of-the-blue feedback that you never realized. And it's like, OK, yeah, actually, my pitch has to go this other direction. And then you fine-tune it with them. So sometimes being too perfectionist on your pitch, just do real-life practice with maybe less important to you, to your sector funds. But I think preparation start earlier. Common wisdom is do not go raise money if you don't need to raise money because you're selling your company. But I think in some sectors it's quite fundamental. You cannot really bootstrap, or I don't know if the audience is acquainted with this term, but basically fund with your own money rocket development. We also hardware intensive in a sense, right? Like we have these balloon devices, we build hardware. So at some point to scale, you're going to need external money. So you have to understand what and under what terms they're gonna put this investment in your firm. And in our case, the milestone we understood was product market fit. Okay, we had a stage to build a prototype, but are we building a product that's catering to something real? Is the demand real? Did someone pay for it already? And that was a good benchmark. And product market fit is I can talk about this for hours. It's a very long search in the life of a startup, but that's something important for your series. It's very difficult to get anywhere without that.
Okay, well, guys, write down all the advice that they are giving you, because in some kinds there's also the same advice that we give startups when we advise them on getting the best funding mix. I would like you to ask you, Ignacy, a short question also about what you were saying. You were talking about fine-tuning the pitch.
Yes.
Okay. So what's this process? It's just you do that because the investors want to listen to that, or at the end you're going to change also the company's strategy or some of the policies that the startup was already carrying on?
That's a great point, and there's no good answer to that. So of course you're going to be tuning the surface of your narrative, like, oh, this point they don't understand it. We're going to change it. Or we don't explain this very well. Or this is a detour that they don't need. Let's not even explain that. You're going to do narrative, let's say, or pitching changes. But some investors will come with actual counter examples because they see this pitch a dozen times, and they see companies trying to do that. So they will come with things that have strategically impacted our company. And I remember one case 3 years ago when we changed a lot of our strategy, and they didn't invest in the company, but it was a useful conversation to have. You have to be careful, because in a fundraising process, you'll get a lot of feedback. A lot of it, you have to say, OK, I think I know what I'm doing, so I'm going to discard that feedback, because it's incompatible to get all the feedback. But in some cases, yeah, they're going to contribute strategic ideas to your company.
OK. OK, Farhan, what about you? You want me to repeat the question?
No,
or?
no,
Okay.
Of course.
So go ahead.
We are a small company, placed here in Barcelona. We started 4 people with our own funds. I think this is interesting or important for investor that can ask you, have you put money here or not? And also taking advantage of Ignacy, time. Time is crucial, because first, we are very bad making calculations. I mean, maybe you think that you need 1 million. It's not true. You need 3. So this is the first point, making business plans, all this stuff. Also pitching. It's a process of learning. You must have your pillars, but at the same time, you need to improve it. If not, you will receive the same answer every time. We talk with more than 100 people, not people, publishers in video games. You are the developer, you make the game, then you need a publisher that invests in your game and then will market this game. And after 30 talks, we said, guys, the problem is not in the publisher. It's our problem, so we have to change something. So we make changes, not only in the pitch, but in the product itself. Video games is also like you, Space. It's not easy to get funds here in Spain. We are a Barcelona company, but at the end of the day, our investor is from Russia. So that's what I can.
How did, at the end, you find your investor in Russia? How this happened?
Yeah, it was incredible, because we started pitching one game that was in a prototype state, because normally the investor wants to see the project, at least prototype, something to test. And we go ahead with this, with a game that is called The Harvest. It was like 80% done, so you can play, you can taste it. But everybody said, no, it's very difficult, a lot of competence. No. And a Chinese company come to us for a work for hire. This is another advice that I want to give you. Okay, you are a startup, you are looking for funds, but you have to make money some way, I don't know. But we started making work for hire, little works, just small works to demonstrate that we can make money. And then this Chinese company said, okay, we have a market opportunity. They have a 100 people department in marketing, and they said, make a proposal. And we said, guys, we are trying to find funds for this game that is 80%. Are we going to use time to make only the proposal? We did it. And then we explained it to the Chinese people. We arrived to the final stage, and they decided not to go with us. And we said, wow. But the next week, we pitched the same. Only a PowerPoint, not a demo, only a PowerPoint with these Russian guys, and they explode the head. And they say, wow, this is crazy. And it's crazy. So they invested. But yeah.
Okay, thank you, Farhan. You have mentioned selling. Okay, a startup, it's good if it can sell. Okay, because at the end it's healthy for the company. In other cases, maybe it's not that easy, but you also mentioned bootstrapping. Okay, and funding is when you cannot do that. Well, now hard times arise. Okay, you have lots of meetings, pitches, negotiations with the venture capital funds, and to make it more difficult, then COVID-19 appears and changes everything. Okay, so now I would like to know a little more about how was this process, and especially because you have already raised capital before that. Okay, you can make the comparison and let our viewers understand the changes that COVID-19 fundraising in COVID-19 made, and maybe maybe they want to stay for the future. So Ignacy, now is your turn. So please, if you can share with us.
The first time we raised any significant money, that was 2018, and that was our seed round. And the first calls are still, on the phone, on Zoom, on Google Meet, and this is still the norm. Like first calls to just get the first pitch, 15 minutes to understand the company. But when it came to the larger meetings with the rest of the firm associates, where they actually want to, you pass the first stage, they want to make the decision, they bring more people in the room. Our CEO, and we also went in a tour in the Bay Area, in San Francisco, this office, now this other office. We're going to visit these people and try to schedule everybody in the same week, which is great because also gives them a sense of urgency, because they know after you visit somebody, you're visiting their competition and their competition. So it's a very dynamic, very quick. Our CEO likes to say, fear of missing out inducing process, like you inducing Fomo, like with this quick but presential process. It was really presential, and people would not really invest without a presential stage. This has dramatically changed in this last round we did a few months ago, where all the calls were remote and people were giving term sheets, so they were offering terms and offering investment without ever seeing you in real life, which is shocking. It's something that, at my own level of personal investment, I'd be scared to do. But it's the name of the game now. Just in some cases, they might, during the last negotiation of the term sheet, just visit the company, or CEO would just fly. But it was pretty clear we were moving forward. It was about, getting to meet each other, but they already made most of the decision. Some people showed that after signing, just to have a coffee and say, let's see what I put my money in, right? But this has significantly changed, which means also it's easier for people around the world and within any location to be doing these pitches and get attention to pitch to a larger and more important audience in any firm. But also it's more difficult for you to generate this FOMO because, you can be fundraising for months and being on Zoom calls all day, and you don't get a sense of what's ticking in the room and urgency, and you don't get so much good human feedback because people is just like tending to their dog or whatever through the calls. So it has, advantages and also challenges.
You think that something of this will remain for the near future, or?
I think we will see mostly remote pitches most of the time for now on. And I think in some specific cases, people will like to visit you. And famously in 2018, some firm passed on us because they said, unless you put the office at 20 minutes drive from the Bay Area, we want to visit you. And if we cannot go to see what's going on, we don't even invest. We invest only in Bay Area companies, which is very strange. And they cannot do that anymore. It's not a thing. Yeah. So I think it's going to stay like it is now.
Okay. Xavier, what about you?
Yes, I really find very interesting what he said about FOMO, because I think we are all humans at the end, and it's clear, and actually, well, I don't know if I can tell everything, but it more or less happened in our round. So in our case, our seed round was fully online. One of our investors is InvestReady, and actually the first meeting we had, they haven't yet invested, but it was very, very ongoing. And it was the only one of the 5 investors we have that we actually met before they invested. Then after they invested, one of the funds came to visit, but for instance, with Panzero Space, we never met in person. We are going to meet them actually in Italy very soon. But it's quite particular, to be honest, to be investing in people that you haven't met and so on. However, I think also that that it has a lot of positive elements. I think that if you have been able to structure the round, or at least have already the lead investor secured, then you can also create this FOMO, because you already have a term sheet, and then you can put people on board more easily. And last but not least, it was very interesting because we had a online due diligence. It's quite surprising, from a guy that used to work at NASA in propulsion. So they dive down into our aerospace technology, rocket engine technology, and it was quite surprising. The guy didn't even see hardware. We showed some hardware online and so on, but at the end, it's a technical due diligence, and we spoke for hours with him and so on, but it was completely online, yeah.
Okay, so we're having more tips, do's, don'ts, okay, so that those startups are sharing with us. Ferran,
Yeah.
what about you, this process, any tip, advice on what you do?
No.
Or what did you
My opinion here is that these companies, they need to invest. Doesn't matter if it's COVID or, I don't know, zombie invasion. So they need to, maybe zombie is worse, but, but they need to invest. So it's another channel. In video games, we are used to use all these, video conferences and all this stuff every day. Of course, it's surprising. I have a friend in the United States that said, but you did all the process online. Yeah, I didn't go to Moscow. I want to go there. I would love to go when I can, but now it's mandatory and they know it. So if you want to invest, if you want to grow your company, these are the new rules. And I think that what we need to do in these calls is, let's say, you become a streamer. You have to use the right side of your brain and trying to be really, really honest and also prepare very well everything. So inform your wife or your daughter about it, not to distract everything. But yeah, I think that it's not that bad.
And is there something, guys, that you would strongly recommend not to do? If you want to share any failure with us, or if not, we can move on.
Not to do when you are in the
this
call.
process. No, or in the call, or in the process of fundraising, negotiating, due diligence.
My advice here is, but maybe it's not what not to do, but what to do, but involves not to do at the same time. It's, please, be yourself, be honest, be transparent, because most of the troubles with an investor ends bad because of that, because you are not transparent enough. You are not with them in all these things. So be yourself and try to, please, share the vision with them. If you get to share the vision, then you have the money, more or less.
Yeah, and if you don't get the money, it's that you are not aligned with them, with their investment thesis, so at the end you wouldn't have it anyways. I would like just to come back before, because I was thinking about what you just said about COVID, and it's true that, for instance, in our sector and in our company, we are quite research intensive, and we did a lot of projects before COVID, from 2018 onwards, where actually all our partners are from all across Europe, so we were very used actually to work and create projects and advance projects with partners and with other organizations that were, so all our meetings were already more or less not physical, because in Barcelona you don't have an ecosystem strong enough in the space sector to advance projects, and actually you want to, I don't know, for instance, we work a lot with Dresden University because they are experts on that, so we met maybe 6 times in real life, but we have been working with them for many years. So I think it was not such a big change for us, because we were used already to actually work and make the projects and work online. Okay,
we're going to schedule. Okay, we can be more relaxed in the questions. Maybe we can expand some of the answers. And the next question would be about the funding that you received, okay? If you can tell us more about this specialized funding, okay? And also, how do they add value? You've mentioned, okay, some of the feedback, some of the, and you change the pitch, and you already completely change the pitch, and then you pitch the same to another company, and they finally invest, okay? If you can also tell us more about this, okay? You are in different stages of having received investment, okay? But at least some of you have received the investment maybe 3 months ago or 4 months ago, okay? Now others you have already, you have just received it, okay? Yeah. But can you expand on the value that those guys add just from the first meeting till the board meetings? whatever you think is interesting. So, Ferran, please go ahead. Yeah.
In my experience, I have been making startups and companies from 2000, I think, 21 years. I'm a little old right now. But in my experience is, please, try to find a strategic partner. So not only money. So this term that smart money, yeah, smart money, I don't know. I want somebody from the industry that I can go with him together. So it means you can get money. I know sometimes it's like, yeah, yes, Ferran, but I have to pay the salaries. If it comes an investor that it's maybe not strategic, I will get the money. Please try not to do that. Because if you have a strategic investor and it's from your business and from your industry, it's amazing. It's crazy. It will double your results for sure. But take in consideration that, okay, now we have this strategic investor. We get 4 million. That's very cool. Don't change your startup mentality. Now we are rich. No. You are nothing. You have the money to make what you have to make. But don't change your mentality. This is my first, some kind of advice. And then push for having and getting the best from your strategic investor. Because yes, it's strategic, but then what? Take action. We are organizing workshops and they say, wow, you are getting a lot of our time. Yes, but you are a strategic investor. So we are organizing workshops with the best people in your organization, and we are pushing very forward to have all these things from the strategic investor, not only the money. And they are well surprised, like, wow, we like to invest in companies like yours, because sometimes they invest in a company and they do their work, but they don't try to get the best of the strategic. So please, if you get a strategic investor, take the best of these guys, okay?
Okay, very good, and then it's what they promise, so at least just take it.
Yeah.
Okay, Ignacy, what about you?
Yeah, I wanna just insist on something that was just said. That is like you get your fundraising done, and you typically feel good because you're relieved. We have money to survive for X years, so great. But I mean, there's nothing. You're not rich. Like you haven't achieved any success. Are you making money from the product? Then you can be happy about it, and then you can be, yeah, we're rich. Let's buy a house in La Cerdaña because we are making money from the product, but not because we're making money from investors. This is not making money. It's just prolonging your inevitable death until you're selling product. So that's the right mentality. And as far as the types of investors and specialized versus not, I think we're in a privileged position because I think we have the 3 types, and I want to talk from the fundraising process until they are on board, how they bring different value. So we're a difficult beast because we do hardware and software, so we need hardware to collect our images, our data, but what we sell is the data, so we're actually a software or a data as a service company. So a lot of investors will come from the data and software world, but they are scared of hardware. Some investors come from the hardware world, and they will, but this is a data product, so they don't feel the pricing or how this works. So we had to actually pitch to all the spectrum. We've pitched to some generalized investors that they might just think it's a good idea, and the pitch there has to be evangelical. You have to explain what's this technology and what's this good about. And they will not ask a lot of in-depth questions about your field, but you will test your idea to a general audience, and sometimes they will come from, we are aerospace engineers mostly in the company. So somebody from a general investor background that has seen a lot of, let's say, consumer products or software companies will have a lot of general tips on structure and organization and product that we might not have. So that contributed some value, I would say. So I don't want to discard the general investors because they will add a more external perspective that can be useful if you're just deep in your field. Then we have specialized investors. And recently in this round, our lead investor is quite specialized in geospatial, in remote sensing, in satellite constellations that image the Earth.
You can mention them. You can
so.
Give names. Yeah, if it's public,
it is. Yeah,
they will be happy.
Yes, it's Crosslink Capital, and they invested in a number of startups that both process data or capture data about the Earth and the environment. And then from your pitch, the conversation is absolutely different. Because in the pitch, they're like, yeah, I don't need the first 3 slides. I know what this is about. I've seen it 1,000 times. Let's go into that detail that I think everybody else is not figuring out. Have you figured out that detail? Because when I see that think in place, I really want to invest. Because we've seen balloon companies, we've seen satellite companies, but we think they have this problem. So you're immediately into a strategic product or scaling discussion that you want to have with somebody. And I think it's also to what Francesc was saying. We want to have somebody who will push us and ask us those tricky questions about strategy and scaling with understanding the field. So they're useful from the start, from even talking to them is useful. If they don't want to invest in you, you have to understand what's happening, because maybe they know something you don't. And once they are onboarded, of course, it's about really bringing them up to speed. You can be super transparent, and they will connect you to the other companies in the field. They will warn you from things that haven't been working, because your idea is never new. Somebody has tried it 20 years ago, 10 years ago. It's going to try it again in 10. Why is it going to work now? And this knowledge is very diffuse. So nobody really has all the full information. Some investors will have a lot of insight in that. And then the last type of investor I want to talk about is what we call the strategic investor. In our case is the corporate investor, because we have corporate investors that, in this case, Toyota Ventures, which everyone knows Toyota, the automaker. They have a large venture fund that goes into robotics, geospatial, mapping the Earth, autonomous cars, all sorts of things that more or less connect with their main mission. And what these guys will bring in this case, and in general, I think any corporate investor, is specific vertical focus. So we're very interested in cars maps for autonomous cars, and mapping the city to higher quality and resolution to help navigate, not only with street cameras, but also overhead is very important for autonomous cars and change detection. Toyota's invested and interested into that. And for us to be able to make this connection and then bring other specialized partners that they know that are going to give us a good go-to into that market, that is incredible value. And it's much more value that they can contribute with the investment, actually.
Okay, thank you, Ignasi. What about you, Xavier?
Absolutely, I completely agree with what has been said. In our case, we don't have a corporate investor yet, but yes, we have a generalist investor, institutional investor, and a specialized investor. And I completely agree. It's very different to go to a generalist investor where you have to, in a way, educate him about the market, about the technology. So probably the first meeting is already lost on this, at least in our case, because it's quite complex to dig into the details. And then you have other investors. We started, and in the first 5 minutes, he was like, okay, let's go into the details. Let's go about your aerospike technology. When we said that, first of all, when we said aerospike, his eyes opened like, wow, okay, aerospike. This has been tried, never succeeded, very complicated. Let's see what these guys have to say. And we explained, I mean, we almost didn't discuss much about the market and so on. We discussed about the technology, because this technology has been locked for years and years and years. So why these 6 guys are going to unlock this very complex technology? So we explained a little bit more what are our let's say, design choices, why we took this path, how are we going to cool the engine, and so on and so on. So the conversations are so different between one investor and the other. And at the end, the generalist one will, as Ignasi was saying, help you in structuring probably better the company. For instance, in Veredi, is putting a lot of attention into how we organize the team, how we actually keep the team motivated, how we find the right competencies, how we find the right people, and so on. And they help us a lot on that. But other investors unlock other doors. Let's say strategic, specialized investors, they unlocked, let's say, contacts with technical people, very high-level technical people that has helped us in maybe even bouncing ideas on technical developments that we may think, okay, do we go for this direction or this other direction? Let's talk with guys from NASA Propulsion Laboratory that have been knowing about these issues before. And last but not least, the institutional investors, again, in a public that is, the other day we were discussing with a competitor of ours, and he was saying that actually rockets are not designed by aerospace engineers, they are designed by politicians. And it's quite true, actually. In a sector that has been, I mean, with very high investments, very political, and so on, at the end, these institutional investors are very important in order to be sure that you are in line with the strategic European roadmap, technological and market roadmap. Otherwise, you will not succeed. So yeah, I think it's very, very important to have the 3. It's very important, I think, to have a specialized investor to be able to really dig dig into the details and have these conversations that you cannot have because nobody knows your business and your technology better than you do. But you have people that know the sector well, that know this kind of technologies well, and sometimes you need to be able to have an open conversation with people outside from your company, but that are aligned in interest with you because they have invested in you, and be able to discuss it openly.
Okay, guys, life is tough, okay? Perfection doesn't exist, okay? So are there any downsides from having a specialized investor or a corporate one that maybe not the ones that you already have in, but maybe that some of them that you have to talk to them and they were proposing some kind of clauses in the contract that were a no-go for you? Mm-hmm. Do you have any views on that, Ferran?
Are you talking about special clauses or
yeah, for
something?
example, I don't know, maybe you cannot have any contact with competitors, or they can say, well, you cannot sell to competitors, I can have a middle right.
No, at the end of the day, I think all kind of investors, being corporate or strategic or whatever, more or less they have the same process, the due diligence and a huge contract, sometimes in our case 10 contracts to have everything in place. So normally the clauses are the typical ones. You have to feel comfortable with them. Of course they are investing in the team, so normally please accept 2-3 years of non-competence, guys. That's it. Mm-hmm. So because the first they need to believe is that you believe in the project and that you want to take it from here to another level. So this is your life project. We talked with them and we said, guys, this is our vital project. So we want to get old with this company. So it's not a problem. Put 6 years if you want. It's not the case. They put 3. But I don't really have any example to give you that I feel uncomfortable. And if in some case I felt, we did some arrangements or whatever, but maybe my colleagues can have some examples.
Yeah, I think it's a very general idea, but there might be not so many specialized investors in your field. I think hopefully in video games there are, but I think in our industry there's much less. So you have to actually manage that relationship much more carefully, because if you fall out of grace with a generalist investor, whatever. But if you fall out of grace with one of the 5, and they all know each other, that's the thing with venture capital. They really all know each other. And if you really mess up in a way that, they perceive you, didn't what you promised, or it was something that wasn't honest at some point, you will have a hard time finding money in all of that niche. You are actually in a very bad place. So it's a relationship that you have to put care, obviously, in all of the relationship with everyone who has put a single euro in your company, but even more so with specialized and venture.
Hey, Xavier, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with what you say. From our side, not major problems with investors, to be honest. Actually, I think sometimes we are a bit naive and we undersell us. Sometimes we're not bad at marketing and communication, but when we pitch, sometimes I think we undersell us. And actually, I think it has been quite great since we had several boards with investors, and they went really good. Because when we opened the capot, I think they did realize that the work we're doing is huge, that we are going to many, many places, that we are, and that we are very honest. And I think this is the key, because all in life also is between the expectations you create and what you can deliver. So at the end, you have to create expectation in order for them to invest, but then also if you are able to deliver more than the expectations that you create, then it only goes better. So yeah, in terms of problems, I don't know. Yeah, then clauses, of course, you have to negotiate the clauses to find a proper equilibrium, right? And I think the idea of the investors is you have created zero value before I arrived, and your idea as an entrepreneur is, I would succeed even without you, right? I mean, and of course it has to be balanced at the end when you reach the agreement. But if you don't feel comfortable with an investor from the beginning, maybe it's better not to let them invest. Again, sometimes you have to pay the bills and you have no other way of doing it. But
okay, so guys, we still have 5 minutes, okay, and we have some questions. I'm gonna ask you one question from the audience, okay? It comes from Andina Beitia from Sensoria Biocare, okay? Something that you more or less covered a little, okay? But you can expand on that because people want to know more about this. And the question is, whenever it comes to choose the best investors or venture capital, is it important to value other things, not just money? How do you choose the best one? What's this process? You have an algorithm or something about, you know, money, experience, contacts in the industry, whatever. If you can expand on that. And what do you value whenever you approach and contact an international investor, maybe the international side? So Ignacy, please.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is absolutely yes, you value other things. In 2 occasions, both in the seed and the Series A, we took worse investment terms because we thought the investor was better. They were slightly worse, not very much worse, but we went like, this is a slightly worse deal, but we really like this investor. And how do you know that you're gonna like that investor? First, there's a part of you're gonna have to work with this person. So is there personal vibe with the team? Do you think they're gonna be able to contribute? Do you think they're not gonna panic when things go wrong? Because in a startup, things will go wrong. So will they be, you know, holding you when you're crying or just trying to push you down when you're crying? And that's important. And then we do referrals with other founders when possible, you know, talk to other people who work with these investors and get really, you know, how they're going to behave as a partner, because you're looking for partners. That's something you have to look at. And if you don't, and that's for everything in life. If you don't like the person and you have other options, you really should go with the other options. It's as easy as that.
Exactly.
yeah,
So, yeah.
If I can add on that, I would say that an exercise that is maybe a little bit out of earth, but I think is useful, is to try to create, okay, we have this funding need, so you define first what is the level of money that you require to arrive to the objective that you have set. And then you should try to draw what would be the ideal board. If you were to have like 3 investors, who would they be and why? What are they bringing, each of them? And then, of course, the reality will be completely different. You will raise more or less money, and it will not be these investors. But at least you have a target, and you are understanding the reasons why you want this partner. And then I think the last part of the process, what you say, that you need a good personal vibe. Sometimes it exists, sometimes it will exist less, sometimes it will exist with part of the team or the whole team. But I think it's important to, what you say, no? To en las buenas y en las malas, as we say, no? So yeah.
Farhan, we still have 1 minute. If you
1
want
minute,
to
very, very fast. I think that at the end of the day, this is a travel. So you have to try to choose who is with you in this travel. Do you want somebody that will talk your language and will talk about games, about game design, about all these things and spend an incredible time? Or do you want somebody talking just about accountability, about numbers? You can choose it, of course, if you can choose. Of course, financials are crucial, and I push all the entrepreneurs that sometimes we are more focused on product to learn about financials, at least to analyze a balance, you know, all this stuff. It's very important because at the end of the day, if you are the CEO, in some point you will have to answer. But please choose the best guy to make this travel together, and that's my advice here.
Okay, so thank you, Farhan. Thank you, Ignacy. Okay, and thank you, Xavier, for sharing with us all your knowledge and your time. And thank you for the audience, and I hope it has been interesting for them and they have learned something from this conversation.
I guess so. Thank you, Oriol, for your brilliant questions. Thank you very much to all of you. I think you have enough clues now to bring to reality your idea, no? I hope so. So let's end this panel. We thanks especially to Axio, the Business Competitive Agency of Generalitat de Catalunya, and all our global sponsors, Servihabitat, Akbar, Ajuntament de Barcelona y Ministerio de Transportes, Movilidad y Agenda Urbana. We will see you at 2, because before we will connect at 1 o'clock, we will connect with Roca Barcelona Gallery, where we have BNU Sustainability channel, and there we will enjoy the inspirational talk of Javier Goyeneche, From Trash to Fashion. If you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. What a suggestive title. See you then. Bye-bye.